At 26, my attention span was totally destroyed. I had spent 7 years in architectural school, the average was 9 years back then, in order to get a degree that was pretty useless. What's worse is that I had to chain 90-hour work weeks for those 7 years, which had eventually destroyed my ability to focus. So as soon as I graduated, I was jobless, of course, and broke, of course, but I really couldn't master the motivation to start looking for jobs. I was constantly distracted, spending more time on Facebook and Tongji, which was the Spanish Facebook back then, that I could admit. Only 4 years later, I had 2 awards that proved that I had the fastest career in the Spanish financial sector. This video is about how I took control of my attention span and how I healed it super fast to finally have a career that I could be proud of. Welcome back. My name is Castillo, founder of Selfmastered Peak Performance Institute for online entrepreneurs. We help them master themselves so they can scale with peak productivity, focus, self-belief, and consistency. So this video is about how to master your attention, because your attention is the most important skill there is if you want to operate at peak performance. And these days, we live in an environment that is too mismatched from where we initially evolved as humans, and we're constantly bombarded by a zillion of inputs that are driving our minds crazy. And the more we lose control of our attention, the harder it is to do anything productive and meaningful. So it is safe to say that those that do not train their attention management will suffer the consequences. But what is attention? So attention is a meta skill that is the support of every other cognitive skill. At the root is just the ability to pay attention to one thing while ignoring everything else. And this has the power to shape your reality, because whatever you pay attention to eventually grows. And the way to live a life that we are proud of is precisely by discriminating between the things that need our attention and those that don't need our attention at all. Mastering your attention really is the cornerstone of becoming an elite performer. Every elite athlete, elite entrepreneur knows this. If you have no control over your attention, you have an extra difficult time to channeling the right emotions and the right thoughts when the moment matters most. At the finals of the US Olympics or whatever it is that you show up for as an elite athlete or elite entrepreneur. And these days, I would argue that it's not really IQ anymore. The main determinant of success really is the ability to pay attention to the right thing for long enough to get the results that you deserve. Nothing else, nothing more. So attention really sits at the core of success. And these days, it is getting harder than ever to sustain it productively. In fact, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, the psychologist who worked on developing the flow theory, said it best. Attention is like energy. No work can be done without it. And in doing work, it disappears. We create ourselves by how we use this energy. Memories, thoughts, and feelings are all shaped by how we use it. It is an energy under control to do with it as we please. Attention is our most important tool in improving the quality of experience. Experience determines the quality of life, and attention determines experience. So attention is really important, but what happens if we mismanage attention? Well, with bad attention, we gravitate towards something called continuous partial attention state, or CPA, in which our stress system is permanently aroused as if we were fearing a threat from the environment. We're constantly hyper vigilant to everything that's going around us, constantly reacting to notifications and distractions, but never really fully paying attention to any of them. And this eventually leads to the overwhelm of your cognitive faculties. If you spend too much time in this continuous partial attention state, over time you degrade your ability to pay attention to anything deeply, and you start overwhelming your own cognitive resources to the point that you start having physical negative effects in the brain, because every thought that we have reinforces the neural pathway that creates it. So over time, if we're permanently distracted, we shape a brain that is prone to distractions, and we end up living in the shallows. We end up not fully experiencing life. We create something called negative neuroplasticity, in which we shape the brain that is keeping us distracted. But also, it really damages our brain's reward center. It hurts our ability to regulate effectively our dopamine. So we need ever increasingly high doses of dopamine just to stay aroused, just to pay attention to something. So that eventually churns out all the things that we need to do in order to live a meaningful life, which tend not to be as exciting as doom scrolling on your phone. You see, working every day is a boring thing for the most part. And if your brain is not able to focus on the task without getting distracted because the baseline boredom level is too high, you are going to have a hard time. This is going to lead to impulsivity, because in the same way that you need ever increasing doses of dopamine in order to pay attention to something and eventually complete that thing, you also tend to have knee-jerk reaction towards things that you have no control over. So you fall for bad habits, so you make bad decisions, so you self-sabotage every time you decided on one course of action. And this is what happens when you don't take action once you are in that continuous partial attention state. This is exactly where I found myself after this many years not taking care of my health and my brain, but also spending so much time on Tongji, on Facebook, on my phone. In essence, I was all over the place. I just couldn't muster the energy and motivation to look for a job. In fact, it took me 15 months to find an actual job, or 18 months, right? But at some point, I decided that I had had enough. I realized that I had been already wasted about 10 years of my life since I started college, because I didn't like architecture at the time. So the point was, what was I going to do in order to transform my life and really become everything that I knew I could become? And the first step was taking control of my attention management. If you're seeing any value of the video, remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss out on any of the juicy videos that we're going to be publishing every single week to help you master yourself and unlock peak performance. The strategy to heal my brain was two-pronged. First, I reduced demands on my attention. So in essence, I stopped paying attention to all of the things that were misaligned with the path that I had decided on going. So I decided that I was going to go into consulting in order to eventually become a private equity professional. So everything that did not match my ambition had to go, which removed pretty much every single minute that I spent in Tongji, in Facebook, in Twitter. All of that had to go, which gave me a lot of free time. But most importantly, it reduced my boredom line. So over time, I could rewire my dopamine system to start paying attention to the things that I knew were going to take me where I wanted to get. So that is absolutely fundamental. The first thing is to eliminate the bullshit stuff that keeps us stuck. But the next thing I did, and I'm glad I did, I started meditating. And this is massive, because meditation is the only habit that is going to rewire your brain for higher levels of focus, compassion, emotional control, memory, learning, mood regulation, and a whole host of cognitive benefits. No other habit comes closer. But I didn't know it at that time. I just started meditating because it made me feel more calm and in control of my emotional response. Later, I learned that meditation could reverse the damage that I had done to my brain by spending so many years in that state of continuous partial attention, because it increases something called gray matter, which is linked to higher levels of memory, learning, and executive function. It also improves emotional control because it regulates the default mode network, which is the mind-wandering mode of the mind, which is correlated with negativity, anxiety, and depression. The more wandering thoughts your mind has, the less happy you typically are. So through meditation, you're able to take control of that DMN, default mode network, and direct it towards present awareness and higher states of focus. But also, it breaks the reward cycle. That was huge, because when I stopped using all of those apps, I just had this twitch of checking them on my phone. Through meditation, I was able to break that spell and catch myself every time I was going to check my phone to access an app that wasn't installed anymore. So it break that cycle of negative habits that took me along the wrong path. So as I said, I healed my brain over time rather quickly, right? Because in a couple of years, in 30 months, I was already a director of private equity industry, going from architect. How did that happen? Well, for the most part, because I was able to do what I needed to do without getting distracted, and taking control of my attention was absolutely fundamental. So removing everything that was not aligned with the goal, but also learning how to meditate effectively, how to rewire my brain for increasing levels of learning, memory, and attentional control. So I hope this is useful to you. It really changed my life, right? Because taking control of my attention is the thing that allowed me to do everything else that I ended up doing. But this won't happen overnight, but I can guarantee that it will eventually happen. These days, literally in 2024, I meditate around 20 times per week, at least once per day, if not two, because this is something that I would do at the beginning of my day, at the end of my day, and sometimes before sales calls in order to calm myself and take control of my emotional response and cognitive faculties, right? So meditation to me is a tool that I deploy as often as I need to in order to keep training my mind for increasing levels of peak cognitive performance. If you want to dive deeper into what peak performance is and how to really master yourself in a scientific manner, check this video here because it's going to show you another aspect to take into account if you really want to become an elite performer. See you in the next video.